Hi everyone, we have a very special guest today with us, Hannah, the Managing Director for the Karman project. Hello Hannah, welcome for SatSure conversation.
Hi Nidhi, thank you so much for having me and for having our delegation here this week.
Thank you. I would like you to introduce to our audience yourself and also what is Karman all about.
Yes, of course. My name is Hannah. I'm the Managing Director of the Karman project. We're an international organisation working with the top space leaders from across 70 nations to really facilitate avenues for trust building, strategic dialogue, and importantly, long-term cooperations between borders. So concretely, we work with people coming from both the public and private sector, astronauts, space agency directors, entrepreneurs, investors, researchers, artists. And what's important to us is to bring them together as humans and as people who care deeply about the future of space, and ensure that we create very safe spaces for them to engage in dialogue as colleagues and really look at tangible avenues to make things happen and to look at how we can push forward collective agendas, particularly right now in a world that is so sort of geopolitically fragmented. How is it that we can find the ways to move things forward in a very tangible manner?
Yeah, great. Would you like to highlight the essence of community Karman holds? Because as the geopolitical tension rightly we have, and how it can help for the peace projects and sustainability.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so space is so well positioned to help us to manage and deal with some of the most time-critical challenges that we have on Earth. So when we look at the whole host of space technologies that are being developed across the world, many of them have very urgent short-term value to society. But that's something that we're not great at necessarily communicating. And I really think that, particularly companies like SatSure have shown time and time again the resilience and the assurity that can be given when we lean into space technologies. So a big part of what we do is ensuring that when we look at this sort of group of critical infrastructure and assets that exist in space, we need to also very realistically look at the vulnerabilities of such assets. And at the moment, there's quite a significant geopolitical vulnerability. Obviously, we're seeing a breakdown of sort of institutional trust across the world. But that also, with every challenge comes a host of opportunities. And what we really want to be doing now is, demonstrating the fact that all people can have an impact in the future of space. So when we look at, for example, the role that the public sector plays, that needs to be complemented by the private sector and different innovations and leadership in the private sector. So a big part of the Karman project and a real essence of our community is to encourage people. We look directly to the decision makers and we tell them, we demonstrate new avenues for cooperation and leadership with these people. And I think it's really important when we look at sort of the long-term sustainability of space. That means so many different things. When we talk about preserving space as a peaceful domain, that means ensuring that we have good coordination of assets in space, that we have open communication happening between counterparts who are developing and managing assets in space, to ensure that we can look at our responsibility towards space debris and ensure that we're looking at different accessibility opportunities for space technologies to ensure that they continue to serve the people on Earth who need those technologies most. So, peace is something that is ultimately the responsibility of everybody. And the Karman project really works to say, if we look at the future of space, we need to be ensuring that we're very proactive about the responsibility that each of us hold. So there's a big element here of, ensuring that the fellows have time and space to dream, to talk about different types of challenges and opportunities, and really think tangibly about what it is, the role that every single person plays in space, and how it is that they can really unleash their potentials to ensure that this sort of broader responsibility that all of us have for space as a peaceful domain, that's something that's at the forefront for everybody in the space sector.
Great. I would also like to understand the format of the Karman, like it's a cohort base, and how do you guys select the Karman members? And also about later, if you can highlight on what this particular batch has, different. I understand the intent remains the same for the Karman, but how this batch is different and adding value, every batch on batch, how you guys are evolving as a community and with a bigger perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. So as a foundation, we run a number of different programs, but the real core backbone of the foundation is the Karman Fellowship program. So each year, 15 leaders are selected from all across the world. They're selected by an independent selection board. So we have applications coming from all across the world, all different disciplines. And then the selection board really come together to look at the people who have a demonstrated track record of having, built things and people who are really sort of thinking outside of the box in terms of, how space can and should look. And then we also really look at their leadership and motivation. So, how have they demonstrated leadership within that region, that discipline, across borders? And importantly, what's our motivation for this next chapter of space? So oftentimes we're looking in the fellowship at people who are at an inflection point in their career. That people who have demonstrated and achieved incredible things from a professional perspective, but they're people who importantly want to do more, and they want to bring their perspectives to an international community. So a big part of the fellowship is sort of bringing together people who are obviously incredibly clever, but also who are very well intentioned. So we really look at people who just care at a human level about the future of space. So it's also important to us that we have in every cohort a very rich mix of disciplines and of nations and cultures. So for example, in every cohort we have people coming from both the public and private sector. We work with astronauts, space agency directors, entrepreneurs, investors, researchers, artists. It's such a multidisciplinary mix of people, because the thing about space is that we can't do any one project alone or with one set of skills and expertise. And at the moment when we're looking at the large scale of space and the projects that we have available to us, risk needs to be shared, ideas need to be shared. So it's something that is so inherently cooperative, and that's the spirit that we really try to bring immediately into the formation of each cohort. So with each cohort of fellows, we want to make sure that, yes, they're clever, they're brilliant, they represent different types of established space nations and emerging space nations, but we also want to see that complementarity and that potential to mix. And I think there's this concept that I love of unlikely connections. So how is it that we can leverage the Karman platform to create new friendships and new connections across borders that perhaps never would have been established otherwise? So in terms of what is special about this cohort, so from this cohort we have people coming from countries like Kenya, Saudi Arabia, India, we have the United Kingdom, Belgium, Iran. It's a really interesting mix of cultures and disciplines. And we have a lot of focus this year. It's quite a strong split, I would say, between Earth observation and end-use applications, but also space exploration. So we have a number of astronauts in the cohort who are really representing as well the different opportunities and pathways into space in this sort of very dynamic era that we find ourselves in. And one thing that has really come through during all of our different discussions, because Karman Week is the core of the program, but before we've all met here in Bengaluru, we've also had many different sessions and online gatherings throughout the year. And something that keeps coming up time and time again in our discussions is sort of the reality of the rising geopolitical uncertainty and what that means for professionals trying to navigate a world that is as technologically complex as space, but that is also as politically complex as space. So we've really seen that there's, everyone really understands that we have very real needs for sovereign capabilities and national security, but we also need to ensure that we don't sort of elevate our earthly grievances into space. So we need to make sure that we're really protecting space as a domain for peaceful advancement. And that is something that has really come through from all perspectives, whether they're, astronauts or space agency directors or private sector leaders. Everyone is sort of really navigating this very complex geopolitical environment right now. And that conversations that we've been able to have in a very honest manner and really understand just how it is that we can make the best of space whilst also respecting, every nation and that need to develop our own programming and our own capabilities. So it's been, an interesting sort of mix of discussions this year.
Great to hear that. And what, like, space has been always a part of a national security or defense and stuff, but now from past 1 decade we are seeing the line has been thinning and it's becoming more accessible, more approachable, and people are now, it's not a dream anymore. People don't dare to dream, people do accomplish their dream. And do you think the communities like Karman really help to encourage, put the confidence and cooperation and the intention, what you said? And do you see that it's coming up in future, more communities like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, visibility is really key to outcomes and success and inspiration. So what we need to be doing in communities like Karman is really modeling best case, responsible behaviours and outcomes, right? And I think that it's really important right now to show that people from all over the world are able to achieve and develop new programs and new innovations. And something that I really, love and admire about the Karman community is, it's such a joyful experience to be in our position, because we have the advantage of seeing year on year when we go through the fellowship applications, or when we go through different types of, we take delegations all across the world, and we can see that there is just so much initiative and innovation happening all over the world. So, I'll be sitting there in Australia looking at different application videos, for example, and I'm seeing projects happening in places like, Senegal or Bolivia or Costa Rica or Brunei, and you just see that, individuals and well-intentioned individuals can make such a difference in that ecosystem. So that visibility and showcasing the work that we're lucky to see all across the world to a wider community is something that, that's a responsibility that I take quite seriously in my position as Managing Director of the Karman Project. So it's really important as well that we can bring particularly emerging space nations and economies into the discussions, not just as sort of end users of space, but as people who can also really, and nations that can really build on this pool of knowledge and add to the innovations and, create new scientific endeavours that are not just sort of looking at the end case for their societies, even though that's obviously a very important thing as well. So yeah, it's the visibility and the inspiration is something that I appreciate, in what we can do in showcasing communities like Karman Project. And I think, as you said, in the last 10 years, we've just seen an absolute growth and burst of ideas and energy from all across the world. And it's important that we give visibility to those projects, because it can really help to, get the attention of different governments and enablers across the world, different financial models that can sort of step in and give support to such projects. But yeah, it's important that, entrepreneurs all across the world, young people can see that, if one person coming from a country without even a space program can create a national program, anyone can. So
now when we have communities like Karman supporting and making it accessible, there are a lot of startups, mushrooming across geographies. What is your advice for the leadership mindset they should have to accelerate? Because it's so much important to invest into R&D at the same time. You need to also, drive growth or profit for the company. So what are your, some suggestions or recommendations for the startups entering into this space ecosystem?
So I mean, it's interesting. We've just been having a whole host of discussions and roundtables this morning, actually, and sort of financial models have been something that we're speaking about in terms of, space is so well positioned to grow very clear societal impact. But obviously you also need an economic case, because we need to ensure that startups are sustainable in the long term. So we've been discussing different models of blended finance and impact investing and ways to bring sort of non-traditional investors into the space landscape. And I think a fundamental message there is that space underpins so much critical infrastructure. If you're looking at energy infrastructure, agricultural infrastructure, different financial models of infrastructure, a lot of the security that we need as a society come from space assets. So I think the first thing that space entrepreneurs can do is ensure that we're not just staying in our own space bubbles, and that we're going out there and that we're speaking to other ministries and stakeholders, and ensuring that the people on the ground working in agriculture understand how they can leverage space technologies for better decision making and more sort of, better yields with our crops. We need to make sure that, the energy sector understand how space underpins that critical infrastructure. So I really feel like entrepreneurs in space need to be thinking broadly and thinking widely, and that's something as well that we really try to ensure in the Karman Fellowship and in the Karman community, is that we have that very robust information exchange between totally different people, because ultimately space touches so many different verticals and pillars of technology, and it's really important that we can create as many opportunities for cross-sectoral dialogue, because ultimately that's how we will build sustainable space ecosystems, if we ensure that we're bringing in other stakeholders from abroad.
So now we have been here for quite some time, and any few things which you would like to take back as a lasting impression, like what will stay when somebody talks about Karman hosted in India? What are the 3 things which you will carry back with you?
So I mean, the first thing that I would say is that we're so grateful to SatSure and the team at Kaleido for the way in which this week has been curated. So when we're talking about bringing international delegations to a different country, we want to do a couple of things. So first is that we want to look at very tangible case studies and understand how it is that our colleagues all across the world are dealing with the same types of challenges that ultimately everyone is dealing with. And I think that the way in which SatSure and Kaleido have introduced us to all different members of the team, your data scientists and your engineers and your communications teams, I think the spirit of SatSure actually really incorporates the broader spirit of interdisciplinary coordination that we need in space. And the way in which you've exposed our fellows to so many different people, not only from within your team, but from across the Indian ecosystem and from, ISRO and other members of the private sector, that's something that I'm incredibly grateful for. And I think that it's a really, tangible demonstration of how space communities can be built and reinforced through supportive mechanisms. The second thing I would say is, I've been really humbled and struck by India as a country and, the way in which you lean into your pluralism as a strength. India has so many different languages. It has so many different religions and subcultures, and it's just this sort of web of it's just such a rich cultural experience in every way. And I really think that the world can learn a lot from that. I mean, looking into India, seeing the peaceful coexistence of so many different belief systems and innovation systems, and seeing this bridging of, high-tech modern science with, so much heritage of spiritual knowledge and cultural knowledge. I think it's a real testament to this country that has been built on so many different stories. And I think that that's something that, the entire, not only the international space community, but the entire international community can learn a lot from. The peaceful coexistence, the sharing of knowledge, the way in which people are building on knowledge. And again, you mentioned before our alumni in the Karman project. That's something that we try to do as well. We try to ensure that it's not just people within one cohort speaking with one another. We want to ensure that people are building on the knowledge and learning from peers before them. And again, I just think India has done the best job of showcasing that at a global scale. And the third thing, I've been very humbled and appreciative of the hospitality in India, and all of our fellows have. I mean, I've said a few times this week that I think I've eaten more this week than I would in a normal month, perhaps. It's been, the hospitality and the care that has been shown towards us. We've been so graciously received and so warmly received. And what I've seen as well is that, our colleagues in India, you're so proud of your culture, and everyone is so proud of, their food and their regions. And again, I just think this sense of pride and national pride that is so open to being sort of shared with people from all over. It's something that I just really admire. And I think the care in which, our Indian colleagues take in sharing that culture is something, again, that I think the world can really learn a lot from.
Thank you so much. Very kind words. Thank you so much. And I want to understand, if one dream, wish is granted to you for the futuristic goal for space ecosystem or what that would be. Like it may or may not be related to community, but what do you think the wildest dream or you would want to have for space economy?
I mean, I think the magic of space is its ability to unite people around common goals. I mean, I really believe in science and space as key tools for diplomacy. And I think that in space we're often reminded of, you know, even though there might be many things that we disagree on across the world, there is so much that can bring us together and that we can agree on. And I think that space is so uniquely positioned to demonstrate and be a leader to the rest of the world of best practices and best case in global cooperation. So if I think about my vision for the future of space, it is one in which we are able to sort of leave the partitions that we've developed on Earth behind, and that we really leverage the space environment to dream together and to showcase the best of human ingenuity, the best of human curiosity, and really find ways to support different ideas and coming to life in the space domain. I also really hope that space does remain accessible to people from all over the world, and indeed all disciplines. So my future of space, I mean, it might sound cliche, but it's definitely one that is inherently cooperative, and it's one in which everybody sees themselves as part of the bigger puzzle, as a responsible actor. I think so often as humans, we tend to defer our responsibility to, say, governments or member states and say, you know what, they're the ones who set the rules, and you know, they have the responsibility to keep things peaceful or cooperative. But you know, the reality is, particularly in an ecosystem like space, where we can have so much private sector leadership, everybody plays a key role in ensuring that the future of space is one that is open, accessible, and used for the peaceful advancement of humanity. And I think that there's a real empowerment to that message. So yeah, my hope is that everyone who is currently working in space, no matter what role they may be working in, they see that piece of the puzzle and they see that responsibility, and that all of us can sort of move towards a collective future that is genuinely reflective of who we want to be as humans and indeed the best of humanity.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for your time. It was interesting speaking to you, and great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for having our delegation. It's been the best week, and we're so appreciative. Thank you.